All right, now let's have a look at this. Okay, we have our solving equations with fractions. These are the 6 steps that you would want to go through as you're solving equations. Now let's have a look at this first example here. We have 8 minus x divided by 2 equals 2x plus 2 divided by 5. The very first thing we want to do is we want to find a common factor of 2 and 5. We know that both 2 and 5 can go into 10, right? Common factor of 2 and 5 is 10. Let's take 10, and let's multiply these groups by 10, okay? What happens here first is the very first part that happens here is the 10 divided by 2. Because we're taking 8 divided by x and dividing by 2 and multiplied by 10, which is basically the same, all right, as now 8 minus x. Because 10 divided by 2 is 5. On the other side, rather than dividing by 5 and multiplying by 10, we know that, well, 10 divided by 5 will be 2. So that leaves us with 2x plus 2. Next step is to get rid of our parentheses. Okay? We do that by distributive property. By multiplying the outside by the inside, I usually use the word marrying. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times negative x is 5x. Which equals 4x plus 4. Now we look at our like terms. We have 5 negative x's on the left side and 4 positive x's on the right. Which one do we move? I always suggest you take your negatives and move them over so that your variables are positive. If you move that negative 5 over, it becomes a positive 5. Okay? Now you have 9x plus 4 equals 40. How do we get the 9 by itself? We take the negative 4, we flip it, it becomes a negative. We have 36 equals 9x. And the last step is dividing. And 36 divided by 9 is 4. So x equals 4. Okay, and that is our equation, and you can actually double check it and plug it back into that equation and see if this works. Let's do that right now. Okay, if x is 4, then this is what this equation should look like. 8 minus 4 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. 10 divided by 5 is 2. This works. So we just did a check. We just checked our answer, and we plugged 4 into the x, and we see that, hey, this worked. Let's have a look at this problem here. We have 2x minus 1 equals 1. All right, the very first thing we want to do is get rid of this ugly, horrible looking fraction. What do? We get rid of this fraction, which is basically 2 dividing by x minus 1 by multiplying x minus 1. Because if we divide it, like, let's say you take 10 and you divide 10 by 2, the answer is 5. But then if you multiply 5 by 2, you go back to 10. So multiplying by the same number you divide is the same thing as doing nothing. All right? So let's do that. Let's get rid of this. So we have our equation here. Let's now multiply x minus 1. Okay? And we take the other side, 1, x minus 1. Now, dividing 2 by x minus 1 and multiplied by x minus 1 is the same as doing nothing, so that basically these cancel each other out, and it leaves us with 2, which equals, we can marry this, x minus 2. How do we get our variable by itself? Here's our variable right here. We simply take the negative 2 and we flip it over. I did something wrong here. Oh, 1, look at this little mistake I made. This is a great mistake for some of you who totally understand. 1 times negative 1 is not 2. 1 times negative 1 is 1. So the opposite of negative 1 is adding. So we add negative 1 to the other side. Okay? And we have our answer, 3x equals 3. And we can do a idiot check, that's what I like to call it. We can check. Let's take x, which we've discovered is 3. Let's plug that into this equation and see if this works. 2 divided by 3 minus 1 equals 1. That is correct. This 3 minus 1 is 2. So 2 divided by 2 equals 1. It works. Yeehaw! Let's have a look at this equation. So this is x divided by 2 minus x divided by 5 equals 3. What in the world is this saying? Well, remember, when you are subtracting fractions like, let's say, 2 over 2 minus, I don't know, 5 over 5, right? To that example, they're both 1. But anyway, let me change this to, I don't know, 3 over 5, right? When you're subtracting fractions, remember we take the denominator and we make it the same. So 2 and 5 both have 10 in common. So we would change this to 10, and then we have to, 2 becomes 10 by multiplying it by 5. So we got to do the same thing here. That's going to be 10, and 5 becomes 10 when multiplied by 2. Okay, so that would be 3 times 6. So this answer would be 4 over 10. Okay, do you guys remember that? I hope from middle school. And the same process applies to this. Okay, we have to see what does 2 and 5 have in common. Well, they both have 10 in common. So let's change these to 10. How do we do that? Well, 2 becomes 10 by multiplying it by 5. So we got to multiply the 2 by 5 and the x by 5. 5 becomes 10 by multiplying it by 2. So we got to multiply both the numerator and denominator by 2. So now this fraction, x over 2, becomes 5x, right, over 10. And this one becomes 2x over 10, and it equals 3. And this is basically the same as writing 5x minus 2x over 10 equals 3. When we have this laid out now, we simply have to, again, remove a fraction. So this is a 5x minus 2x divided by 10. Well, to get rid of the 10, we just multiply the whole thing by 10. Because dividing a number by 10 and multiplying a number by 10 is the same as doing nothing. But what we do here, we have to do on the other side. So now we have 5x minus 2x equals 30. Combine our like terms and get rid of our coefficient, the 3. That leaves us with 10. X equals 10. And we can actually prove this. Let's prove it right now. This is the original problem. So if x is 10, this would be 10 divided by 2, 10 divided by 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So 5 minus 2 equals 3. It works. Yeah! All right, so we have this problem right here, which is 9 divided by x equals 5 divided by x minus 3. So these are our denominators. They need to be the same. We need to eliminate these fractions. So how do we do that? We take both of these. Since they are not the same, we're gonna use their common factor, which in this case, because it's variables, the common factor of x and x minus 3 would be x minus 3. This is the common factor for this. X times x minus 3 would be both of these. So we take this right here, and we're going to pop that on and multiply both of these fractions by x parentheses x minus 3. Okay, this may seem a little confusing, but you will see where we're going with this. I should actually make this parentheses going the other way, like that. Okay? Now, what happens here is that the x and the x cross one another out. The x minus 3 and the x minus 3 cross one another out. So all that leaves us with is 9x minus 3, which equals 5x. We can get rid of these parentheses, and that leaves us with 9x minus 27 equals 5x. And now we simply combine our like terms. We got to take that 5, bring it over to the 9. It becomes a negative 5x. So that leaves 4x. And of course we take the 27, the negative 27, we flip it over and it becomes a positive 27. So 4x equals 27. If I bring it up here, we simply now have to divide by 4, and our answer is here. Okay, we have 2 more problems. This is a bit of repetitive like the last one. Here's our denominators. They are x plus 1, 3x minus 2. They are not the same. We have to find the common factor. So obviously we just take those and we multiply them together. This will look now like this. Okay, so we've taken both the denominators and we're multiply them together to the fraction. So we see x plus 1 cancels each other out. 3x minus 2, 3x minus 2 cancels each other out. So now that leaves us with 4, 3x minus 2 equals 7x plus 1. And let's get rid of the parentheses. We have 12x minus 8 equals 7x plus 7. We combine our like terms, bring the 7 over here, take the negative 8, put it over there. The 7 becomes a negative 7. The negative 8 becomes a positive 8. Okay? Bring this up here. That leaves us with 5x equals 7 plus 8, 15. Therefore, x equals 3. Now, I know this seems very strange, but hopefully you get used to it, and we can actually double check this. Let's double check it right now. Okay, if x is 3, then this would be 3. 4 divided by 3 plus 1, which is 4, is 1. If x is 3, that would be 9, right? Minus 2, which is 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1, and it works. All right, this is our last one. Now, this looks a little bit complicated, but let's just break it down. Because we have parentheses, it means that we are taking the 1/2 and we're multiplying it in there. We're taking the negative 1/6 and we're multiplying it in there. Let's do that right now. Okay? We know 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times negative 1 is negative 1/2. Now we have this part here. Negative 1/6 times x is negative 1/6 x. Negative 1/6 times 1 is negative 1/6 and equals 0. So we've just removed our parentheses. Now let's do ourselves a favor and collect our like terms. We have 1/2 x here. We have negative 1/6 x here. Here we have a negative 1/2, and here we have a negative 1/6. So let's this might look very scary to you, but we basically are just subtracting fractions. However, the denominators are all different, so we need to make them the same. So let's look at what they have in common. Well, we know 2 goes into 6, and 2 goes into 6. 3 times, to be precise. So we can change this fraction and this fraction here by multiplying them by 3 so that they are the same. Let's do that now. Okay, so we have just changed our fractions. We've multiplied the 1/2 by 3. Okay, and now we have our fractions 3 over 6x minus 1 over 6x minus 3 over 6 minus 1 over 6. Just recall that 3 over 6 is the same as 1/2, right? It's the same thing. Okay, so now we can actually do our math. Okay, so this is where we are now. Okay, remember, if you're wondering how, remember we were negative 3 minus 1 is the same as negative 3 plus negative 1, which is negative 4. So this is where we are now. This is where we are right here. Now, what do? We have 2 over 6 times something minus 4 over 6. The very first thing is let's get rid of the 6's, because if we take this equation, it is the same as, I'm going to write it again in blue, it is the same as 2x minus 4 over 6 equals 0. So now I think you know what to do. What do we do with this? We take this equation and we multiply it by 6. I use green, we multiply it by 6. And on the other side, we multiply it by 6 as well. That leaves us with, and dividing and multiplying by 6 cancels it out, so that leaves us only with 2x minus 4 equals 0, because 6 times 0 is 0. Now we get our x by itself by adding the 4. Adding the 4, that leaves 2x equals 4, and then x equals 2. This is our answer. So I just plugged it in, and here I plugged in the 2 instead of the x, because we discovered that x is 2, and it works. If you follow this equation, you will see that actually it leads us down to 1/2 minus 3/6, and we know that 3 over 6 is the same as 1/2, right? 3 over 6 equals 1/2. So 1/2 minus 3 over 6 equals 0. So this equation works. I double checked it and it works. This is basically the steps to solving these equations that have fractions in them. And it's great because if you can do this, you can basically solve equations. This is really, will really set you up for the long haul.